What are you waiting? 5 Girls 5eva.
Hey guys, it's Kevin with my review for the first season of Girls5eva. So what Girls5eva is essentially about is basically we center on this 90s girl group, and they were very popular back in the day, but they really only had one hit single, and since then they have kind of split apart since one of their members has died, and basically one day this up-and-coming rapper decides that he's going to sample one of their songs, and this brings all of them back together and gives them the idea to actually bring back the group and hopefully sort of rekindle some of their friendships. So Girls5eva overall, I was really looking forward to this show. To me, this seemed like the first show on Peacock that could actually be a real hit, could actually be something really fun. I really like the concept behind this show, and it just seemed like one of those shows that, especially in terms of summer, we really could kind of need right now. Just some fun, laid-back entertainment, and I'm happy to say that's exactly what this was. This is easily one of the most bingeable and fun shows that I have watched in quite a bit that I very much recommend all of you check out. But we are just getting into it right now, starting off with the cast. And when it comes down to the cast here, I mean, that's the thing that absolutely makes the show. I really do think if this cast was not as good, as not consistently entertaining as they were, I don't think the show really would work. But gratefully, this entire cast just absolutely kills it here. Just starting off with, I mean, all four of them, Sara Bareilles, Busy Phillips, Paula, Pell, and Renée Elise Goldsberry, all of them work really well together. They have phenomenal chemistry throughout this entire show, and they all fulfill a very specific role. Sara Bareilles is definitely more of the straight man here. She's someone that I think fills that role very well. You know, Paula Pell is someone who is the older one, and she's very sort of like, you know, she's always working and things like that, and I really did enjoy what she ended up doing. Busy Phillips, I wasn't sure if I was going to like her in this role at first, but I really did enjoy where she ended up going. She has probably the silliest stuff out of everyone in this show. I think they did a pretty good job when it came to her character, but Renée Elise Goldsberry, for me, was absolutely the standout throughout the show. I think she has the funniest work out of anyone. She just had me dying of laughter at so many points in this show, and she also is just, you can tell, having so much fun as the character of Wiki. I really enjoyed what they ended up doing with her, and I think that she was just such a joy to watch throughout this entire show. And like I said, I truly do think if the chemistry between these four was not as good as they were, the show just wouldn't really work. But thankfully, their dynamic is just absolutely electric and one that you just can't help but buy into. They work so well together. They're clearly having so much fun within this show, and it was just absolutely irresistible to watch. They are definitely, I think, far and away the best thing about this show. But when it comes to the rest of the cast, they also do a really good job. Daniel Breaker is really good as Dawn's husband. I really enjoyed him in this show. He was definitely a lot of fun to watch. Ashley Park is not in this much, but when she's there, she's really good. Huge standout for me, though, and someone that I kind of wanted more of in this show was Andrew Rannells, who plays this character, Kev. He is Summer's Busy Phillips' character, Summer, her husband, that is sort of like not really in her life much. They're very much in a long-distance relationship, but you can very much tell that he is also probably gay, and the way that he plays this up, I thought was so funny. It's probably one of his funniest roles yet, and every time he came on screen, I just loved every single second of what he was doing. He was such a huge standout for me. Like I said, this whole cast is an absolute knockout. I think everyone really does kill it, and makes up one of the most just consistently entertaining ensembles I've seen in any show this year. Alright, so now let's get into the directing and the writing, because that is the thing that I think also works really well when it comes to the show. The directing here is really good from Meredith Scardino. She does not take it too seriously. It's clearly supposed to be very lighthearted and fun, and I think the show really does work at that. It purposefully doesn't take itself too seriously, so you're able to just kind of go along with the ride, and I think the show really does work in that way. And like I said, the comedy, I mean, oh my god, this show is just so funny to watch. There are so many gags here that I think are just so great when it comes to the comedy throughout this show, and I think they do some really great stuff with that. throughout this entire show. I was laughing hysterically at so much of what was going on here, and I think that's what makes the show work so well, is that the comedy really does hit. I mean, whether it's just lines that they say or even some of the songs that we have throughout this show, I think they do a really great job with. So I think the directing here is overall really good. You can tell that this is someone that really does have a lot of passion when it comes to 90s girl groups and things like that, and I think that definitely is very well communicated here for sure. When it comes to the writing in this show, this is where we get to the things that I think also work really well, because when you're making a show like this, it is hard to not turn into self-parody, and gratefully, I don't think the show ever did. There are definitely points where it does get a bit ridiculous, and it is pretty clear that, you know, what's going on here is very heightened, but I never felt it delved into a point where it was starting to make fun of itself, or it was, you know, trying to sort of just poke, you know, absolutely just mock everything that went down, you know, within 90s girl groups. The show does, for the most part, have a lot of respect for that, and I think that's something that the show does a really good job with, and the way that it talks about the music business overall is something that I really did enjoy. I mean, the character of Gloria, for example, Paula Pell, this is someone that is very clearly a lesbian. She does not have the same feelings for guys that the rest of the girls do, but you can see, because it was the 90s and because it was this girl group, she basically was forced into pretending to be straight, and you can see that this has had a bit of an effect on her since then, and I thought that was very intriguing to me. Or Summer, this character that really was never able to be her true self, because her name was also Ashley, but they told her to change her name to Summer because they couldn't have two Ashleys in the group. Just things like that I found to be very fascinating, and I think the way the show looks at the music business is really interesting, because as they start to put these songs together, they start to realize a lot of what they did in the 90s is not exactly very friendly. It's not something, you know, a lot of what they did in the 90s, they're not exactly lyrics that people should aspire to be. They're not exactly songs that are very positive in that way. There's a lot of problematic stuff going on within that music, and I really did enjoy getting to see that. I thought it was a very interesting thing to see them all sort of go through. And these characters as well, I mean, like I said, they're all very interesting throughout this entire show, and they all have a very specific role to fill. You have Dawn, who, yes, she's very straight-laced. Yes, she's definitely the one in the group that is the most chill, but she also is a songwriter, and that's basically her goal throughout the entirety of this show, is that she's going to become this, you know, she's going to write a song for them. She's going to propel them to success. And seeing her go about that is a lot of fun to watch. There's a great episode, episode 4, where she imagines Dolly Parton and her kind of getting inspiration from her, and seeing that her eventually, go through the creative process, and her eventually start to develop this great song, I thought was really fun to watch. And I think Bareilles does a really good job, like I said, at playing that role. I think that the character of Dawn is one that is just very likable and someone that we can very easily latch onto. So I think they do some really good work when it comes to that character. But then you also have a character like, say, Wiki, someone who is very fierce. She's someone that sees herself as very fierce in that way. She's incredibly extra, but she also doesn't really know where she's going within her life. She's had some jobs as like a pilot and things like that, but for the most part, she has not really had the success that some of these other women have had, and so you really do kind of see her struggling throughout this show, and I think they did a really good job when it comes to that. Or you also have Summer, who is very naive. And like I said, at first, I was not a fan of her. I will definitely say that. Summer was the one that I was not really a fan of. But when you get the sense that she's basically supposed to be the one weak link in the group that doesn't recognize that, I think that really works for her character, because she isn't very talented. She can't really sing. She's not really someone that contributes a lot to the group. She's kind of just there because of her looks. And that's something else that I think we saw a lot in 90s girl groups, where it's like, you're putting this girl in the center, but is she really is she really, someone that is worthy of being in there? And I think that's something they did a really good job with, and her whole subplot with Andrew Rannell's character is one of the funniest parts of the entire show, and I really enjoyed what they ended up doing with her overall. I thought she was a lot of fun to watch. And then, like I said, with Gloria, she is a lesbian, and she's also recently gotten out of a relationship with her girlfriend, which actually is Paula Pell's, I believe, real life wife, which I thought was really nice to see. And she kind of has this whole subplot where she's trying to sort of, rekindle things with her. She's trying to get back together with her ex, and we see that might not be the easiest thing for her to do. So I think they give enough to each of these characters. I think that's something that does overall work within the show. Although I will say the one issue I do have with this show is that it doesn't exactly take itself very seriously. And that's both a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because the show is consistently funny. It's one of those shows where they are just throwing out so many jokes just one by one to the point where you don't have time to laugh at the next joke because you're already recovering from laughing so hard at the last one. And I love shows like that. I love shows that just go for it when it comes to the comedy. I mean, it's just non-stop. And some of the comedy does come from the fact that these girls are a lot older. There's a great scene in episode 2 where they're trying to record this song, but it's through FaceTime because Paula Pell's character is a dentist, so she can't really be there. So while they're trying to record this song, she's trying to give a root canal to someone, and it's really funny to watch. So like situational stuff like that, that's the stuff I really did enjoy when it came to the comedy. I think there was a lot of really fun moments when it came to the comedy there, and I think they definitely delivered in terms of that. But the problem is when it comes to the more serious aspects of the show, I don't really think the show handles those all that well because they don't really have a lot of serious moments, and I think that they kind of should because these characters themselves are very likable. These are characters I want to know some things about, and I feel like I didn't get to know as much. The character of Wiki, for example, as much as I enjoy Renée Elise Goldsberry, I felt that she was kind of sidelined in terms of a story. It felt like she was always getting like the subplot in the show, and a lot of the time it felt very throwaway. Like there's a whole episode where she's just ordering this piano, and we don't know why she's ordering this piano, and we have those whole shenanigans going on, and it felt very sort of sitcom-y to me, and I feel like this show is better than that. This show is better than just being generic and sitcom-y, and I think sometimes it did delve a bit too deep into those sort of sitcom tropes, and that's something that I didn't really enjoy, and I wanted to know more about Wiki overall. There's a contentious relation between her and Dawn in the first episode, and it's just kind of brushed aside immediately because Wiki decides to live with Dawn, and so we don't really get to discuss that ever again, and I think that was definitely a problem. I wanted to see more of that story, but they didn't really do much with that at all. Gloria as a character, there's really only one episode when it comes to her ex. We hear about it in the first episode, but then there's only one other episode where she's trying to, she's trying to get back with her, but besides that, we don't really get to see a lot. So I think while they do a good job when it comes to the character stuff, it's not the strongest part of the show. I think the strongest part of the show is the laughs, is the comedy. I think the character stuff is sometimes sacrificed for the laughs here, and I do think that does bring the show down, but my biggest issue, I think, with the show, and the thing I think that does sort of bring it down for me and makes it not as great, because I do think the show is really good, but I don't think it's hit that great level, and I think the one thing it's really missing is that we have this character, Ashley, who is, of course, dead in the show. We know that she's dead, but she apparently was the character that kept these girls all together. She was the glue that really held the band together, and it never really feels that way. It's something that we're told, but every flashback that we see, there's not a lot that's given to her. She's kind of just in the background, and I feel like she should have been a lot more prominent in this show. I feel like they should have had a lot more flashbacks. I feel like we should have dived a lot deeper into Ashley, and maybe this is something they'll improve in the second season. I would love if they did that, because it would give us more of a chance to understand her contribution to the group. But to me, it just felt like she was the fifth girl. That's really what it felt like. It didn't really feel like this group was missing anything without Ashley. And I feel like they bring it up sometimes, but it's just not as effective if they were to, it's not as effective as if they did show it. I think they definitely should have shown it, and they didn't, and I do think that did bring the show down a couple notches for me. But like I said, this show's a lot of fun to watch. I think there's a lot of great comedy here. In terms of cinematography, I think the show is very well filmed. When it comes to the sequences overall in the 90s, I think those are very well done as well. I really did enjoy the cinematography in the show, and the music. I mean, it's just an absolute knockout. I think the music is fantastic here. Yes, some of the lyrics are absolutely ridiculous, but the music is really great. I've constantly been listening to this one song, 4 Stars, that they sing at the end of the season. It's just great. I loved what they ended up doing when it came to the music in the show. The theme song is sure to be one that's not going to be out of your head for a long time. This show absolutely delivers in terms of music. It's very catchy. It's very memorable. The lyrics are definitely ones that I think are really well written. I just really enjoyed the music a lot in this show. And the editing, I do think the show is very well paced. It's very fast paced in that way, but I do think it needed a little bit more than 8 episodes. I think while it is very breezy, it is one that can be easily forgotten because, again, I feel like it didn't make the impact that it wanted to with some of the characters, and I think if they wanted to do that, they needed 2 additional episodes for that. I think 10 episodes probably would have been the best for this show, but again, I do think that overall the show was very well paced. I never was really bored with this show, and I think overall I was really enjoying a lot. I think because of the fact that the show is very well paced in the way the episodes only range about like 30 minutes each, I think it's going to be a really easy binge for you. And while I did enjoy the finale of the show overall, the way they ended things I thought was very bizarre. There's a line at the end, and I had a very hard time figuring out, are you serious with this line, or is this just a joke? I really could not tell, and I feel like if they're implying what they're implying, they definitely should have done a much better job with hinting at it throughout the season, because it kind of just felt like it came out of nowhere, or it was just like they needed a cliffhanger for the season, so they left it at that. If it's just a joke, then I don't understand why it's there. Just overall, it just felt like a really weird way to end the season. Like I said, I thought the finale overall was really well done, but I just felt that the final line was just really weird. The way they decided, the note they decided to end the show on was just really weird overall. Overall, I really enjoyed this first season. I think it has a very likable cast. It has a lot of interesting stuff to say about the music industry. It's got some really interesting characters overall. I do think it could have dived a bit deeper into some of them. I do think there are some storylines that are a bit sacrificed because of the constant laughs, but what it doesn't accomplish as much in character development, it makes up for in laughs, it makes up for in terms of music, it makes up for in terms of just a really talented cast overall that I think makes for a really, really fun show overall. That for me, I think this is finally going to be the show that puts Peacock on the map. I think Peacock is a streaming service that has really been struggling to like get an audience in terms of original shows, and I think this is it. I think this is going to be a hit for them. I think this is the show that finally is going to gain momentum. This is a show that finally people are going to talk about. People are really going to end up liking this show, and I think definitely this show is very successful overall. So I am going to give the first season of Girls5eva overall a B. But over, guys, to my review of Girls5eva. Let me know what you guys saw of this show overall, left your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.